Most players see the likes of Tenz and Shazam and think, wow, I wish I could be that good. The problem is, becoming that good is difficult and very time consuming. For players stuck in Iron and Bronze, there may be a much easier way to rank up that I am super excited to share with all of you. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to be the first to see more content designed to help you rank up just like this. Keep in mind that these tips did work for me, but you may need something different. That is up to your own judgment. Hello everyone, my name is Achax, and this is my guide to getting out of Iron and Bronze without getting better. Let's kick it off with the background. I'm going to show you some of my favorite skill checks. Skill checks are a collection of one tricks which use an opponent's bad habits against them to find round-changing advantages. If opponents do not learn how to adapt, one skill check can decimate opponents for rounds on end. This is particularly strong in Iron and Bronze because habitual mistakes are more common, and because Iron and Bronze opponents tend to adapt less. I recommend you listen to every skill check, even the ones you already know or have heard of, because you aren't just doing these at random. Each skill check is designed to destroy an opponent who is making a certain mistake. It's important you know what mistake that is. In addition, you may be doing a small thing incorrectly which has a large detrimental effect on your game. Making a small change in these cases can have a large overall impact on your skill. If you want to know more about skill checks so that you can perform them better, look out for the video after the next one, which will be linked in the description down below. Now that you know what we're looking at and what to look for, let's hop into the first skill check. The first skill check is arc angles. This is one that's much easier to show than tell. A lot of bronzes play in a somewhat blocky fashion, moving up to the edge of a wall and peeking out horizontally like this, instead of clearing with sweeping motions. On top of that, many opponents will wide swing with util or push while reloading. This skill check is a catch-all for these mistakes. When they do these actions, their flanks are exposed to many side angles that they don't clear, which means holding an angle somewhere along that arc that they should have checked with their sweeps allows you to take advantage of that vulnerability. The best way I can describe it is this interaction creates a sort of one-way but with angle geometry instead of a smoke. As you can see, if they peek in that blocky manner, their player model will slowly grow on your screen as they move closer to the box. On top of that, they are wide swinging way out into the open where they can't easily get back to cover and without looking at you. With good crosshair placement, that's another easy frag to add to your record. Be careful though. If the opponents choose to start clearing angles carefully with sweeping, it might be you and not them who are caught in the open. The second skill check takes advantage of a super specific bad habit. This habit is shooting before aiming. In Valorant, if a player is standing still and their crosshair is not on the opponent and then they shoot, they are pretty much guaranteed to miss because of how accurate most weapons in Valorant are. Yet that's exactly what many players do, and then they have to drag their aim over to their opponents, fighting recoil and spread the whole way. This mistake is worsened by poor crosshair placement, which is also pretty common in Bronze and Iron. I see a lot of long spray battles in Iron. It usually takes a while, and you can take advantage of this extra time with the Odin. On paper, the Odin is worse than the Vandal and Phantom in terms of one-tap potential. However, what the Odin lacks in one-tap potential, it makes up for with an incredible rate of fire and a massive magazine. The combination of these two makes for a very forgiving weapon. In practice, once you aim onto a target, it can function pretty much like a laser beam. It can easily shred opponents who are too slow or too panicked to land the first 5-ish shots. Make sure to practice the Odin spray scoped and unscoped, crouched, and standing. You can scan for opponents who shoot before aiming by looking for opponents who shoot first and then take a while to either land shots or finish frags. This skill check is especially awesome, not only because it's so easy, but also because it can be difficult to adapt to. You may recognize a specific situation that makes using the Odin incredibly strong, but from the outside looking in, you're just playing normal Valorant. Unless you tell them, it's going to be difficult for the opponents to figure out what they're doing wrong in the first place, and as a consequence, it's going to be difficult to adapt. This can result in opponents failing the same check over and over, allowing a player to run away with an easy victory. The third skill check is using flashes. There are a few ways of dealing with flashes. Players can quickly look away and snap back, and some players can time up shots even when flashed. but opponents in Iron and Bronze tend to just look at flashes, and that makes sense because flashes are very quick. It typically takes muscle memory from practice and experience to react to flashes quickly enough. If you have to think about it, you're probably too late. It's definitely nothing to be ashamed of if you make the same mistake. However, it is still something you can leverage against opponents. There are two keys to this. The first is not getting greedy. Flashes don't last very long. Even when you flash multiple opponents, it's usually better to grab one and escape unscathed, rather than have 4 opponents regain their vision with you right in front of them. The second is not flashing yourself, which is a lot more difficult than most give it credit for. Figure out the timings of whatever flash you are using so that you peek after it pops. A lot of players just keep moving forward automatically, but if you have to stop or pull back for a moment, do that. This skill check is particularly awesome because it doesn't really have a hard counter as long as you can adjust to blind timing shots, and because figuring out how well the opponent deal with flashes can be really easy. Just try it and see what happens. The fourth skill check, and hear me out, because even though it's a common term, in my experience like 80% of golds do this incorrectly, is holding for pushes. A ton of players hold for pushes by holding an angle like this that the opponent will push through on their way to a flank. This makes intuitive sense because you will intercept them, but the main problem with holding an angle like this is that the opponents can easily retreat because they have plenty of cover. Sure, you'll definitely win some of these fights, but there is a high likelihood that a large percentage of the fights will simply end with the opponent withdrawing with information, leaving you with nothing. In order to secure the advantage, you might want to consider drawing in the opponent so that they cannot retreat when you choose to take the fight. One possible solution is holding directly next to a corner like this. Opponents may not be expecting you, and you can pursue them around the corner because you are so close. This can be weak against careful opponents, though. Maybe a better solution is taking a position like this. You are behind cover in what is generally an unexpected angle. You can swing and catch an opponent out in the open. You can also wait until they walk into your crosshair as they move towards sewers. The bad habit in this case is pushing. It's not always a bad idea to push, but by hard countering it, you're making it a bad idea. That's the beauty of this skill check. The most common drawback from holding for pushes is wasting time if the opponents never push. But another awesome aspect of this approach is that good map control can usually be maintained with positions from which to springboard attacks later in the round. The fifth skill check is walking through smokes. This sounds like a really daring, aggressive, and potentially foolish move. Yet when calculated, it can be a jarring attack that badly shakes the opponent's confidence and nets a round in the process. Generally, moving through smokes is a terrible idea. However, as Stewie2K discovered in CSGO, people don't always pay the most attention to their smokes since they don't expect anyone to run through them. The bad habit to look for is smokes that bulge towards the opponents instead of towards you. This is a smoke that favors the defense, and this is a smoke that favors the offense. Since the bulge is towards the defenders, there are many more locations you can pop out at. This isn't difficult to execute, but you do have to know how. Don't make noise as you walk up to the smoke. You don't want to give the opponents any indication that you are near them. Clear the smoke. You can run a short distance without making sound. If there is someone waiting inside the smoke with a shotgun, you'll probably lose that fight, so be careful. Walk up and burst out of the smoke at one of the left or the right edges. In this way you can use the middle part of the bulge as soft cover. If the opponents aren't focused, they will be slower to react, and they might have poor crosshair placement or lax positioning. In this situation, you will have a substantial advantage to win an aim duel. It's really difficult to test this one out, so you kind of just have to try it. One way to enhance this attack is with flashes, preferably phoenixes. Flash through the smoke like this in order to blind opponents and take some easy frags. Overall, this is a high-risk, high-reward attack. Since it's pretty obvious what you're doing, more opponents will adapt more quickly to this one. This makes doing this skill check a bunch of times in a row far more difficult. In order to mitigate risk, this is the kind of attack that tends to be more successful if used just after opponents stop thinking about it. The potential reward is amazing for a few huge reasons. Number one, you can deliver a double surprise. The opponents already aren't expecting attackers to burst through a smoke. Being completely silent before striking extremely quickly and all at once compiles that advantage to create a stunning attack. Add that to the fact that defenders are theoretically in a superior position. Losing from that spot can cause opponents to lose confidence and believe you are simply better than them. Even though, as I've talked about before, that doesn't really make sense, it can still create an easy win. And then there is a third potential huge win that more experienced players are more likely to be able to use. Such an attack can condition opponents to be extremely overreactive, since you've proven you can strike without warning. It can also cause some opponents to be reluctant to rotate for the same reason. Either one can be used against opponents extremely effectively. This video is already getting a bit long with a lot of information, so I'm going to hit the pause button for now and release the second half of the list in the next video. I hope you found some value in this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Best of luck, and I'll see you next time.